I thought I knew what love looked like until my white husband looked me dead in the eye and said 4 words that shattered everything. I only married you out of pity. 3 years of playing the perfect wife in his world of country club dinners and charity galas, and it all came down to that. Pity. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that while he thought he was saving me, I was quietly building something that would change everything. See? There's a difference between being grateful and being smart, and I'd been smart for longer than he realized. When he finally saw my bank account, the look on his face told me everything I needed to know about who really needed saving in this marriage. Some revenge is loud and messy, but the sweetest kind. It's the kind that leaves them sitting alone, finally understanding what they threw away. If you're watching this story unfold, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from, because this tale of quiet power and calculated freedom is just getting started. The charity dinner had been perfect. Too perfect. I should have known something was wrong when Evan spent the entire evening introducing me as my wife, instead of using my name. Like I was a possession he'd brought along to show off. I kicked off my heels the moment we walked through our front door. The marble floor felt cold against my feet, but it was nothing compared to the chill I'd been feeling all night. Our house, well, Evan's house, always felt too big, too white, too much like a museum where I was just another piece on display. "You were quiet tonight," Evan said, loosening his tie as he walked to the bar cart. The crystal glasses clinked as he poured himself a scotch. He didn't offer me one. He never did. Was I? I bent down to pick up my heels. The black dress I'd worn, the one Lydia had picked out for me last month because it was appropriate, felt tight around my chest. Everything about tonight felt tight. "The Hendersons were asking about your work." Evan took a sip of his drink. "You barely spoke to them." I straightened up slowly. "They weren't asking about my work, Evan. They were asking how I managed to land you." He laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed off the high ceilings like it was mocking me. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I turned to face him. "Mrs. Henderson asked me 3 times if I was grateful for the opportunities you've given me. Mr. Henderson wanted to know if I'd ever imagined living somewhere like this when I was growing up." "They're just curious about our story." Evan set his glass down harder than necessary. "It's not their fault you can't handle a simple conversation." The words hit me like a slap. I'd been to dozens of these dinners, smiled through hundreds of these conversations, listened to countless people talk about how lucky I was, how generous Evan was, how different our relationship must be from what I was used to. "I handle them just fine," I said quietly. "I just don't enjoy being treated like a charity case." Evan's face changed. The polite mask he wore in public slipped away, and I saw something cold underneath. Something that had been there all along, waiting. "Maybe that's because that's exactly what you are." The air left my lungs. I stared at him, waiting for him to take it back, waiting for the apology that would explain how the words had come out wrong. But he just stood there, holding his drink, looking at me like I'd finally forced him to tell the truth. "What did you say?" "You heard me." His voice was calm, matter of fact, like he was discussing the weather. "I only married you out of pity." The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked. Once, twice, 10 times. I counted each one because it was easier than processing what he'd just said, easier than feeling the words sink into my chest and spread like poison. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything or storm out. I just stood there in my too tight dress, holding my heels, staring at the man I'd loved for 3 years. "I see," I said finally. Evan blinked, like he'd expected more of a reaction. "Nia, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." I turned toward the stairs. "Good night, Evan." I walked upstairs slowly, each step deliberate, each breath measured. Behind me, I heard him pour another drink. The ice cubes clinked against the glass like tiny bells at a funeral. Our bedroom was dark except for the moonlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I set my heels down carefully in the closet, hung up my dress, changed into my pajamas. All of it automatic, like my body knew what to do while my mind tried to catch up. Pity. He'd married me out of pity. I sat on the edge of our king-size bed, his bed, and stared out at the city lights below. From up here, everything looked small and distant, including me. The door opened, and Evan walked in. He'd finished his drink. Maybe 2 drinks. I could smell the scotch from across the room. "We should talk about this," he said. "Should we?" I was frustrated. "You've been distant lately, and tonight I embarrassed you." I turned to look at him. "Is that what you were going to say?" He ran a hand through his dark hair. The same gesture that used to make my heart skip when we were dating. Now it just looked tired. "You're putting words in my mouth." "Am I?" I stood up and walked to the window. The glass was cool against my palm. "Tell me, Evan, when did you start pitying me? Was it when we met at that coffee shop downtown? When I spilled my latte and you bought me a new one? Or was it later, when you realized I lived in a studio apartment and took the bus to work? Don't do this." "Do what? Ask questions? Try to understand when my husband stopped loving me and started feeling sorry for me instead." "I never said I didn't love you." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No. You said you married me out of pity. That's worse." Evan sat down heavily on his side of the bed. Our side used to be the same side, back when we couldn't sleep without touching. Now we had our own territories marked out by invisible lines. "I was angry," he said quietly. "I said something stupid." "Stupid." I tested the word. "Is that what we're calling it?" "What do you want me to say, Nia?" "That I'm sorry. I'm sorry." But he wasn't. I could hear it in his voice. He was sorry he'd said it out loud. Sorry I'd heard it. Sorry he'd been caught. But he wasn't sorry it was true. I walked back to the bed and pulled the covers down on my side. The sheets were expensive, Egyptian cotton. Thread count higher than my monthly salary used to be. Everything in this house was expensive, including me, apparently. "I'm tired," I said. "That's it? That's all you're going to say?" I looked at him one more time. Really looked. At his blue eyes that used to make me feel like I was drowning in the best way. At his hands that used to trace my skin like I was made of something precious. At his mouth that used to whisper my name like a prayer. What else is there to say? He opened his mouth like he wanted to argue, but something in my face stopped him. Maybe he finally saw what I was feeling. Maybe he finally understood that some words can't be taken back. "Good night, Evan," I said again. I turned off the lamp on my side and lay down with my back to him. The mattress dipped when he finally got into bed. He didn't try to touch me, didn't try to talk. Just lay there breathing in the dark while I stared at the wall. Pity. The word played on repeat in my mind. How long had he felt that way? How many times had he looked at me and felt sorry for the poor black girl who didn't belong in his world? How many conversations had he had with his friends about his charity case of a wife? I thought about all the times I'd felt out of place at his family's dinner table. The way his mother, Lydia, would compliment my humble beginnings, like they were something quaint and interesting. The way his father, Thomas, would ask me about my people, and then look uncomfortable when I talked about my actual family. I'd thought it was just adjustment. The normal awkwardness of 2 different worlds coming together. I'd thought if I was patient enough, kind enough, perfect enough, they'd eventually see me as just Nia. Not black Nia, not poor Nia, just me. But Evan had never seen me that way. To him, I'd always been a project, a good deed, something to make him feel generous and progressive and kind. The tears came quietly. I pressed my face into my pillow and let them fall without making a sound. Crying in silence was a skill I'd learned early in our marriage. In this house, emotions were supposed to be controlled, managed, appropriate. Even heartbreak had to be polite. By the time the sun came up, I'd made a decision. Not about what I was going to do, not yet. But about what I wasn't going to do. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to try to convince him he was wrong. I wasn't going to make myself smaller so he could feel bigger. I was done being anyone's pity project. Evan's breathing had evened out hours ago. He slept like a man with a clear conscience, like someone who'd finally told the truth and felt better for it. I wondered if he dreamed about me, if he dreamed about pity. I slipped out of bed carefully and padded to the bathroom. My face in the mirror looked the same as always. Brown skin, dark eyes, hair in the silk scarf Evan had bought me for Christmas. Not because he understood why I needed it, but because his assistant Claire had suggested it. Even his gifts came from someone else's knowledge. I splashed cold water on my face and brushed my teeth. Normal morning routine, like nothing had changed. Like my world hadn't shifted completely off its axis in the span of one sentence. Downstairs, Evan was already dressed for work. He stood in the kitchen with his coffee and his phone, scrolling through emails like it was any other day. He looked up when I walked in, and for a second, something flickered across his face. Guilt, maybe. Or just inconvenience. "Morning," he said. "Morning." I poured myself coffee from the machine that cost more than my car. The silence stretched between us like a bridge neither of us wanted to cross. "I have meetings all day," Evan said finally. "Probably won't be home until late." "Okay." "Nia." He set down his phone. "About last night. What about it?" He studied my face like he was trying to read something written in a language he didn't understand. "Are we going to talk about this? Do you want to talk about it? I want to fix this." I took a sip of my coffee. It was perfect. The right temperature, the right strength. Everything in this house was always perfect. "Fix what, exactly?" "This." He gestured between us. "Us." "What's broken?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. He'd expected tears, probably. A fight. Drama he could manage and control and eventually smooth over with expensive gifts and romantic gestures. He hadn't expected calm. "You're upset," he said. "Am I?" "You're being cold." "I'm being honest, just like you were last night." Evan's jaw tightened. "I told you I was frustrated. I didn't mean what I said." "Which part didn't you mean? The part about marrying me out of pity? Or the part about me being a charity case?" "All of it." But his eyes said something different. His eyes said he'd meant every word and was just sorry I'd made him say them. "I have to get ready for work," I said. "Nia, please, can we just—" "What, Evan? What do you want me to say?" "That it's okay. That I understand. That I forgive you for thinking of me as your good deed for the past 3 years." He flinched like I'd hit him. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I set my coffee cup down and looked at him directly. "Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you've never introduced me to someone and felt proud of yourself for being so open-minded. Tell me you've never looked at me and thought about how different your life would be if you'd married someone like Claire instead." The name slipped out before I could stop it. Claire, his assistant, blonde, perfect, everything I'd never be. The woman who understood his world without translation. Evan's face went white. "Claire has nothing to do with this, doesn't she? She's my employee, nothing more." I stared at him for a long moment. I never said she was anything more. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He'd given himself away. Shown me that Claire wasn't just a random comparison. She was a real possibility he'd considered. "I should go," I said. "Nia, wait." But I was already walking away. Up the stairs, into our bedroom, into the bathroom where I could lock the door and pretend for a few minutes that I was somewhere else. Someone else. I heard him leave for work 20 minutes later. The front door closed with a sound like a period at the end of a sentence. I was alone in his house. Alone with his pity. Alone with the truth. But for the first time in months, I wasn't alone with his expectations. And that felt like the beginning of something. I just wasn't sure what yet. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. The one Evan didn't know about. The one I'd kept from before we got married, back when my mother had sat me down and told me to always have money he couldn't touch. "Just in case," she'd said. Not because I don't trust him, because I don't trust anyone with my daughter's future. I'd thought she was being paranoid, old-fashioned, cynical about love. Now I stared at the numbers on the screen and realized she'd been preparing me for exactly this moment. The account balance blinked back at me like a secret, like a possibility, like a way out I'd been building without even knowing I'd need it. I closed the laptop and sat in the quiet house, surrounded by expensive things that had never belonged to me. The grandfather clock ticked in the hallway. The same rhythm as last night, when my marriage had ended with a single sentence. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet, but I knew what I wasn't going to do. I wasn't going to beg for his love. I wasn't going to try to earn back something I'd never actually had. I was done being pitied. Outside, the city moved at its usual pace. People going to work, living their lives, building their own stories. I watched them through the floor-to-ceiling windows and wondered what my story would look like when I finally decided to write it myself. The clock struck 9. I had to get ready for work, had to go sit at my desk and answer phones and pretend everything was normal. But something had shifted. Some small, quiet part of me had started planning. I just didn't know it yet. Work felt different that day. I sat at my desk answering phones and filing papers, but my mind was somewhere else. Every time someone called me Mrs. Whitmore, I felt like they were talking about someone else, someone who still believed her husband loved her. "You're quiet today," my supervisor Janet said during lunch. "Everything okay at home?" I looked up from my salad, the same salad I brought every day because it was cheap and healthy. "Fine, just tired." Janet studied my face. She was good at reading people. Had to be. Managing an office full of administrative assistants who all had their own problems. "If you need to talk, you know where to find me." I nodded and went back to my salad. But Janet was right. I was different. Quieter. Like something inside me had gone still and was waiting. The afternoon dragged. Every email, every phone call, every small task felt like I was moving underwater. When 5 o'clock finally came, I packed up my desk slowly. The other women were talking about their evening plans, dinner with their husbands, kids' soccer practice, normal life things. I had dinner plans too, with a man who'd married me out of pity. My phone buzzed as I walked to my car. A text from Evan. "Running late. Start dinner without me." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Start dinner without him. Like I was his housekeeper instead of his wife. I drove home through rush hour traffic, listening to the radio and trying not to think. But the words kept coming back. Pity. Charity case. They played on repeat like a song I couldn't turn off. The house was empty when I got home. It always was. Evan worked long hours, and I'd gotten used to spending evenings alone in rooms too big for one person. But tonight, the silence felt different. Heavier. I stood in the kitchen and looked at the refrigerator full of expensive food. Organic vegetables. Imported cheese. Wine that cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a month. All of it chosen by Evan or his personal shopper. My preferences had never factored into any of it. I made myself a sandwich instead. Peanut butter and jelly on regular bread. The kind of food Lydia would call common if she saw me eating it. I was finishing the last bite when Evan walked in. His tie was loose, and his hair was messy like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked tired. Stressed. Good, I thought, then felt guilty for thinking it. "Hey," he said, setting his briefcase down. "Sorry I'm late. The Morrison deal hit a snag." "It's fine." He looked around the kitchen. "Did you eat already?" "I had a sandwich." "A sandwich?" He frowned like I'd said I'd eaten dirt. "Nia, there's salmon in the fridge, and that pasta you like." I wanted a sandwich. He stared at me for a moment, then walked to the refrigerator. "Well, I'm starving. Long day." I watched him pull out ingredients for a proper meal. Watched him move around the kitchen like he owned it, which he did. Everything here belonged to him. The house. The food. The wife. "How was your day?" he asked as he heated oil in a pan. "Fine. Busy. The usual." He glanced over at me. "You're still upset about last night." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Like my feelings were an inconvenience he had to manage. "I'm not upset," I said. "Then what?" I looked at him, really looked, at the way he stood with his back straight, confident in his own space, at the expensive watch on his wrist, at the way he expected me to explain myself to him. "I'm thinking." About what? About pity. The word hung in the air between us like smoke. Evan's hand stilled on the pan handle. "Nia, do you remember when we met?" I interrupted. "Really met. Not the cute story you tell at parties about the coffee shop. Do you remember what you said to me?" He turned off the heat and faced me. "Of course I remember." "What did you say?" "I asked if you were okay. You seemed upset about spilling your drink." "And then?" He was quiet for a moment. "I said I'd buy you another one. And then?" What are you getting at?" "You said, a pretty girl like you shouldn't have to worry about the cost of a latte." I stood up from the counter. "Do you remember that?" His face changed slightly. "That was just pity," I finished. "Even then. You looked at me and saw someone who needed saving." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" I walked closer to him. "Think about it, Evan. Really think. When did you stop seeing me as someone you wanted and start seeing me as someone you could help?" He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. I could see him thinking. See him going back through our relationship and looking at it with new eyes. "It wasn't like that," he said finally. "What was it like?" "I loved you." Past tense? He flinched. "I love you." Present tense. "But you married me out of pity." I was angry when I said that. Angry people tell the truth, Evan. They just usually keep it to themselves. My phone rang before he could respond. I looked at the screen and saw Marla's name. My best friend. The one person who'd never looked at me like I needed saving. "I have to take this," I said. "Nia." But I was already walking out of the kitchen. "Hey, Marla." "Girl, you sound weird. What's wrong?" I closed myself in the study, Evan's study really, though he let me use it sometimes. "Can you meet me for lunch tomorrow?" "Of course, but what's going on? You never call me from home anymore." She was right. I used to call Marla all the time. Used to text her funny stories about my day. Used to complain about work and laugh about stupid things. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped. When had that happened? When had I become so careful about what I said and did in this house? "I just need to talk," I said. "Okay. Noon at Lou's Diner?" "Perfect." I hung up and sat in Evan's leather chair. The room smelled like his cologne and expensive furniture polish. Everything was perfectly arranged. Books on the shelves that looked important but were never read. A desk with nothing personal on it. Art on the walls that said nothing about the person who lived here. I wondered what this room would look like if it belonged to me. What I would put on the shelves, what would sit on the desk, what would hang on the walls. But it would never belong to me. None of this would. I was just visiting someone else's life. The door opened, and Evan walked in. He looked uncertain, like he wasn't sure he was welcome in his own study. "I heated up some dinner for you," he said. "It's on the counter." "Thank you." He hesitated in the doorway. "Are we going to keep doing this?" "Doing what?" "This cold shoulder thing. This punishment." I looked at him for a long moment. "Is that what you think this is? Punishment?" "What else would you call it?" "Processing." He walked into the room and sat down across from me. "Processing what?" "The fact that my husband married me out of pity. The fact that he thinks I'm a charity case. The fact that for 3 years, I've been trying to earn something I never actually had. You have my love, Nia. Do I?" I leaned forward. "Or do I have your sympathy? Your guilt? Your need to feel like a good person? That's not fair." "Then tell me what is fair, Evan. Tell me what's fair about spending 3 years feeling like I don't belong in my own marriage. Tell me what's fair about smiling through dinner parties where people talk about how lucky I am to have found you. Tell me what's fair about pretending I don't see the way your mother looks at me like I'm something you picked up off the street." His jaw tightened. "My mother. Your mother thinks I trapped you. She thinks I got pregnant or lied about something to make you marry me. She's been waiting 3 years for the truth to come out. That's ridiculous." "Is it? Because last night, the truth did come out. Just not the truth she was expecting." Evan ran his hands through his hair. The gesture that used to be endearing now just looked frustrated. "I don't know what you want me to say. I don't want you to say anything. Then what do you want?" I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the city lights were starting to come on. People in other houses were having normal conversations about normal things. "I want to understand when I stopped being your girlfriend and became your project. You were never my project. No." I turned back to him. "Then explain the makeover. Explain how you slowly replaced all my clothes with things that were more appropriate. Explain how you started correcting the way I talked. Explain how you convinced me to change my hair because the natural style was too distracting for business dinners. I was trying to help you fit in." "Fit into what?" "My world." The honesty of it hit both of us at the same time. He'd said it without thinking, and now we both had to live with it. "Your world," I repeated. "Not our world. Your world that I had to fit into." Evan's face went pale. "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is." I walked toward the door. "And that's exactly the problem. Where are you going?" "To bed. I have work tomorrow." "Nia, wait. Please. Can we just—" "What, Evan? Can we what? Can we pretend this conversation didn't happen? Can we go back to the way things were? Can we keep pretending that I belong here?" He stood up, and for a moment he looked lost. Like a child who'd broken something and didn't know how to fix it. "I don't know how to fix this." "I know," I said softly. "That's the problem." I left him standing in his study and went upstairs to our bedroom. I got ready for bed in silence, brushing my teeth and washing my face like it was any other night. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw something different, something harder. I was done being soft for people who couldn't love me properly. Evan came to bed an hour later. He moved quietly, like he was trying not to disturb me, but I was already awake, staring at the ceiling and thinking about tomorrow. "I'm sorry," he whispered into the dark. I didn't answer. "I know I hurt you. I know I said something terrible, but I love you, Nia. I do. Still nothing from me. Please don't shut me out. I turned onto my side, facing away from him. I'm not shutting you out, Evan. I'm just not letting you in anymore. The silence that followed was heavy with things neither of us knew how to say. He wanted forgiveness. I wanted truth. We were both going to be disappointed. I lay there listening to his breathing slow down as he fell asleep. It always amazed me how easily sleep came to him, how he could close his eyes and let go of the day without carrying its weight into tomorrow. I envied that. I'd been carrying weight for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to be light. My phone buzzed with a text message. I checked it quietly, careful not to wake Evan. It was from Marla. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Love you, girl. I smiled in the dark. Real love. The kind that didn't need explaining or earning or fitting into. The kind that just was. I texted back, love you too. Then I closed my eyes and tried to imagine what tomorrow would look like. What I would say to Marla. What I would admit out loud for the first time. That my marriage was over. I just hadn't told my husband yet. The next morning felt different from the moment I opened my eyes. Evan was already up, showering in the ensuite bathroom. I could hear the water running and him humming some tune I didn't recognize. He sounded normal, happy even, like nothing had changed. I got dressed quickly, a simple black dress and flats. Nothing fancy, nothing that needed explaining or defending. When Evan emerged from the bathroom with a towel around his waist, I was already putting on my watch. You're up early, he said. Same time as always. You sure? It feels early. I looked at him in the mirror. Maybe you're just paying attention now. He paused, his hand on his tie. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just an observation. I finished getting ready and headed downstairs. Evan followed a few minutes later, fully dressed and carrying his briefcase. He looked like the successful man he was. Confident, put together, in control. I'll probably be late again tonight, he said, pouring coffee into his travel mug. Big presentation tomorrow. Okay. Will you be all right for dinner? I could have Claire order something. Don't. The word came out sharper than I'd intended. Don't have Claire order my dinner. Evan stared at me. It's not a big deal, Nia. She orders for the whole office sometimes. I can order my own food. I know that. I was just trying to be thoughtful. Were you? Or were you just trying to manage me from a distance? He set down his coffee mug harder than necessary. What is with you lately? Every single thing I say, you twist into something negative. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just hearing what you're actually saying for the first time. And what am I actually saying? I picked up my purse and car keys. That you think I can't handle basic life decisions without help from your assistant. That's not... Have a good day at work, Evan. I left him standing in the kitchen looking confused and frustrated. Part of me felt bad for being difficult. But a bigger part of me was tired of making things easy for him. The drive to work gave me time to think about what I was going to tell Marla, about what I was ready to admit to myself, about what I wanted my life to look like 6 months from now. I couldn't picture Evan in that life anymore. The realization should have scared me. Instead, it felt like relief. Lou's Diner was exactly what it sounded like. A small, family-owned place with worn vinyl booths and coffee that came in thick white mugs. Marla was already there when I arrived, sitting in our usual booth by the window. She stood up and hugged me the moment she saw me. You look tired, she said. I am tired. We sat down, and she studied my face with the intensity of someone who'd known me for 15 years. Marla had been my roommate in college, my maid of honor at my wedding, and the first person I'd called when I got the job at Evan's company. She knew me better than anyone. "Okay," she said after the waitress took our order. "Talk." So I did. I told her about the charity dinner, about the conversation afterward, about the words that had changed everything, about the cold way he'd said them, like they were facts instead of daggers. Marla listened without interrupting. Her face got harder with every detail. "Son of a bitch," she said when I finished. "Marla, no, don't defend him. Don't you dare." She leaned across the table. "He married you out of pity. What kind of sick—" "Keep your voice down." She looked around the diner, then back at me. "How long have you been dealing with this?" "With what?" "With feeling like you don't belong in your own life." The question hit me like a physical blow, because she was right. That's exactly how I'd been feeling. Like I was visiting someone else's life and trying not to mess anything up. "I don't know," I said quietly. "It happened so gradually, I didn't notice at first. But you notice now." "Yeah, I notice now." Our food arrived, but neither of us touched it. Marla was still staring at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I don't know." "That's not true. You know. You just don't want to say it out loud." She was right again. I did know. I'd known since the moment Evan said those words. Maybe I'd known for longer than that. "I can't stay," I said finally. "No, you can't. But it's not that simple. We're married. We have a life together, a house, shared finances." "Do you?" "Do I what?" "Have shared finances. Really shared. Or does he control the money while you live on an allowance?" I thought about my bank account. The secret one. The one I'd been adding to for 3 years without really knowing why. "I have my own money," I said. Marla raised an eyebrow. "How much?" I told her. Her eyes widened. "Girl, what have you been doing? Living on rice and beans?" "I've been careful. I kept my same budget from before we got married. Put the rest away." "Why?" "My mother told me to. She said always keep something he can't touch." Smart woman. Did she know something about Evan? I don't think so. I think she just knew something about men. We sat in silence for a moment. The diner buzzed with conversation around us. Normal people talking about normal things. I envied them their simple problems. "You could leave," Marla said finally. "Tonight, if you wanted to. It's not that easy." "Why not?" I tried to think of a reason. A real reason. Not just fear or habit or the weight of other people's expectations. "I don't know," I admitted. "Then maybe it is that easy." She reached across the table and took my hand. "Listen to me. You are not a charity case. You are not a pity project. You are a smart, beautiful, successful woman who deserves to be loved properly. If he can't do that, someone else will. What if no one else will? Then you'll love yourself properly. And that's enough." I squeezed her hand. "When did you get so wise?" "When my best friend married a man who thinks he's doing her a favor by being with her." We finally ate our lunch, talking about practical things, where I could stay if I needed to, what I should take with me, how to protect myself legally. It felt strange, planning the end of my marriage over grilled cheese and tomato soup, but it also felt right, like I was finally taking care of myself the way I should have been all along. "Promise me something," Marla said as we got ready to leave. "What?" "Promise me you won't just disappear into silence. Don't let him guilt you into staying. Don't let him convince you that this is all in your head." "I promise. And call me. Every day if you need to. You don't have to do this alone." I hugged her goodbye and drove back to work. The afternoon passed in a blur of phone calls and paperwork. But underneath it all, I could feel something building. A sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. I was going to take my life back. I just had to figure out how. That evening, Evan came home on time with flowers and takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. He'd never remembered my favorite Thai restaurant before. The gesture felt calculated, manipulative. "Peace offering," he said, holding up the bag of food. "You didn't need to do this." "Yes, I did." He set everything on the kitchen counter. "I've been thinking all day about what you said last night. About my world versus our world. You were right." I stared at him. I was? I've been selfish. I've been so focused on helping you fit into my life that I never asked what you wanted our life to look like. It was a good speech. The right words in the right order. If he'd said them 6 months ago, they might have worked. But it was too late for speeches. "What do you want our life to look like?" he asked. I looked at him standing in his kitchen, holding flowers he'd bought to make himself feel better about hurting me. I want it to look honest. "Okay, then let's be honest. You first." He set the flowers down and faced me. "I love you, Nia. I know I said something terrible, but it's not how I really feel." "Then how do you really feel?" "I feel lucky. Lucky to have you. Lucky that you chose me." "That's not what you said the other night." "I was angry. People say things they don't mean when they're angry." "Do they? Or do they say things they've been thinking, but not saying?" Evan was quiet for a long moment. "Maybe sometimes, but not this time." I wanted to believe him. Part of me was desperate to believe him. It would be so much easier to forgive and forget and go back to the way things were. But I couldn't unknow what I now knew, couldn't unfeel what I now felt. "I need time," I said. "How much time?" "I don't know." He nodded like he understood, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. He wanted this fixed now, wanted to move past it and get back to normal. But normal was the problem. We ate dinner in careful conversation about safe topics. Work, the weather, plans for the weekend. Nothing that mattered, nothing that could hurt. After dinner, I went upstairs early. I sat on the bed with my laptop and looked at apartments for rent. Not because I was ready to move, just because I wanted to know what was possible. 1-bedroom places in safe neighborhoods, studios downtown, shared houses with other women my age. All of it looked small after 3 years in Evan's mansion, but it also looked like freedom, like mine. When Evan came to bed, he lay down beside me quietly. "What are you looking at?" I closed the laptop. Nothing important. "Nia?" "Yeah?" "I really am sorry, for all of it. For making you feel like you don't belong, for taking you for granted, for saying something so cruel." I turned to look at him. In the dim light from the bedside lamp, he looked younger, vulnerable, like the man I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. "I know you are," I said. "Does that matter?" I thought about it. "I don't know yet." He reached for my hand, and I let him take it. His fingers were warm and familiar. For a moment, I remembered what it felt like to love him without question. But then I remembered what it felt like to hear him reduce our entire relationship to pity, and the moment passed. "Good night, Evan. Good night." I turned off the light and lay in the dark, listening to him breathe. Somewhere between sleep and waking, I made a decision. I was going to stop waiting for him to change. Stop waiting for his family to accept me. Stop waiting for permission to be happy. I was going to start planning my exit. And I was going to do it quietly, carefully, and completely on my own terms. For the first time in 3 years, I fell asleep feeling like myself again. The next few weeks passed in a strange kind of calm. Evan tried harder, brought me coffee in the morning, asked about my day, suggested we go out more often, but his efforts felt desperate, like someone trying to hold water in their hands. I played along, smiled when he brought flowers, thanked him for dinner reservations, let him think his apologies were working. But inside, I was planning. I started small, copied important documents when he wasn't home. Birth certificate, social security card, marriage license, though that one stung to touch. I made a folder on my laptop labeled tax stuff, where I kept everything. Evan never looked at my tax stuff. I researched apartments during my lunch breaks, called moving companies from the parking lot at work, opened a new checking account at a different bank. All of it careful, all of it quiet. Marla met me for coffee twice a week, and each time she looked more worried. "You're getting scary calm," she said one Tuesday afternoon. "Like serial killer calm." "I'm just being smart." "Are you sure you're not just avoiding the hard part?" "What hard part?" "The part where you actually leave." I stirred my coffee and watched people walk by the window. "I'm leaving. I just need to do it right." "What's right about staying with someone who thinks he married you as a charity project?" "Nothing. But what's wrong about taking time to plan my exit so I don't end up homeless and broke?" Marla studied my face. "That's not what you're worried about, is it?" "What do you mean?" "You've got enough money to start over 10 times. You've got a job, a car, friends. You're not worried about being homeless and broke." She was right, and we both knew it. "Then what am I worried about?" I asked. "You tell me." I was quiet for a long moment. "What if he's right?" "Right about what?" "What if I am lucky to have him? What if I am a charity case? What if I leave and realize I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me?" Marla set down her coffee cup hard enough to make me jump. "Listen to me. The best thing that ever happened to you is not a man who thinks he's doing you a favor by loving you. The best thing that ever happened to you is you realizing you deserve better." "But what if—" "No. No what ifs. You know what he said. You know how it made you feel. You know this isn't real love. Stop trying to talk yourself out of what you already know." She was right. I was scared, but not of being alone. I was scared of being wrong, scared of making the biggest mistake of my life. But staying felt like a bigger mistake. That weekend, Evan suggested we go away together. Just the two of us, somewhere quiet where we can talk without distractions. "Where did you have in mind?" "That place in Napa we went to for our first anniversary. You loved it there. I had loved it there. Back when I thought he loved me the way I loved him. Back when I thought we were building something together instead of him fixing something broken." "Okay," I said. "Let's go." Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was hope. Maybe I just wanted to see if being away from his house, his world, his rules would change anything between us. We drove up Friday after work. The hotel was just as beautiful as I remembered. Expensive and elegant, surrounded by vineyards and mountains. Our room had a fireplace and a view that went on forever. For the first time in weeks, Evan seemed to relax. We had dinner at the restaurant where he'd proposed 2 years ago. Drank wine and talked about easy things. For a few hours, it almost felt like before. "I miss this," he said as we walked back to our room. "What?" "You. Relaxed. Happy. You've been so tense lately." I wanted to point out why I'd been tense, but the evening had been nice and I didn't want to ruin it. Not yet. In our room, he built a fire while I changed into pajamas. We sat on the couch and drank more wine and watched the flames dance. It was romantic. Perfect. Exactly the kind of evening that was supposed to fix everything. "I want to ask you something," Evan said. "Okay. Do you remember why you fell in love with me?" The question caught me off guard. "What? When we first met? When you first knew you loved me? What was it about me that made you feel that way?" I thought back to the beginning. To the coffee shop and the ruined latte and the man who'd seemed so interested in everything I had to say. "You listened to me. I still listen to you. Do you?" "Of course I do." What did I tell you yesterday about my day at work? He was quiet for a moment. You said it was busy. What else? I don't remember exactly, but I was listening. I told you Janet is getting divorced. I told you about the new woman who started in accounting. I told you I'm thinking about taking night classes. His face changed slightly. Night classes? See? You weren't listening. You were waiting for me to stop talking so you could tell me about your day. That's not fair. Isn't it? We sat in silence, watching the fire. Outside, the wind moved through the trees with a sound like whispers. What kind of night classes? He asked finally. Business classes, maybe marketing. Why? Because I want to learn something new. Because I want to grow. You could grow at the company. There are opportunities for advancement if you're interested. In your company. What's wrong with that? I turned to face him. Everything I do would be because I'm your wife. Every promotion, every opportunity, every success would be tainted by the fact that I'm sleeping with the boss's son. That's not true. Yes, it is, and you know it. Evan was quiet for a long moment. So what are you saying? You want to quit? I'm saying I want to build something that's mine, something that has nothing to do with you or your family or your money. But why? We have everything we need. You don't have to work if you don't want to. And there it was. The thing he'd been thinking but not saying. That I should be grateful for the life he'd given me. That I should be content to be taken care of instead of wanting to take care of myself. What if I want to work? I asked. Then work. But why make it harder on yourself? Because easy isn't always better. He shook his head like I was speaking a foreign language. I don't understand you anymore. Maybe you never did. The words hung between us like smoke from the fire. For a moment, I thought he might argue, might try to prove me wrong. Instead, he poured himself another glass of wine and stared into the flames. I'm trying, Nia. I'm really trying. I know. Then why do I feel like nothing I do is enough? I looked at his profile in the firelight, at the face I'd kissed 1,000 times, at the hands that had held me through bad dreams and good mornings. For a moment, I felt sorry for him. Sorry for us both, because you're trying to fix the wrong thing, I said quietly. What do you mean? You're trying to fix my reaction instead of fixing what caused it. He turned to look at me. I apologized. I explained that I didn't mean what I said. But you did mean it. Maybe not consciously, but some part of you has always seen me that way. As someone who needs saving. Someone who should be grateful for your attention. That's not... When we go to dinner with your friends, you introduce me as your wife. But you never talk about what I do. You never ask my opinion about business or politics or anything that matters. You never include me in real conversations. I include you. You include me in conversations about charity work and vacation planning and safe topics that wives are supposed to care about. Evan was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was smaller. I didn't realize I was doing that. I know, that's the problem. It's so natural to you that you don't even notice. So what do I do? How do I change that? I looked at him sitting there in the firelight, asking me to teach him how to love me properly. And I realized something that broke my heart a little. I don't think you can, I said. What do you mean? I think this is who you are, and I think this is who you need me to be for this marriage to work. That's not true. Then prove it. Tell me about a time when you were proud of me for something that had nothing to do with how I looked or how well I fit into your world. He opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. I watched him think, searching his memory for a moment like that. The silence stretched on. I'm proud of you all the time, he said finally. For what? For being you, for being beautiful and kind and perfect for me. I closed my eyes. Even now, even when he was trying to prove me wrong, he could only see me in relation to himself. I wasn't proud-worthy on my own. I was proud-worthy for him. I think I want to go to bed, I said. Nia, I'm tired, Evan. Can we just go to bed? He nodded and started putting out the fire. I went to the bathroom and got ready for bed, brushing my teeth and washing my face like it was any other night. But in the mirror, I looked different, older, sadder, decided. When I came out, Evan was already in bed, reading something on his phone. He looked up when I slipped under the covers. I love you, he said. I know. Do you love me? I looked at him for a long moment. At his blue eyes and his worried expression. At the man I'd promised to love forever. I love who I thought you were, I said finally. His face crumpled a little. And who did you think I was? Someone who saw me as an equal. Someone who loved me because of who I am, not despite who I am. I do love you because of who you are. No, you love me because of who you need me to be. I turned off the lamp and lay down with my back to him. Behind me, I heard him set his phone on the nightstand. Heard him shift and settle. Heard him sigh. I don't know how to fix this, he whispered. I know, I whispered back. We lay in the dark for a long time. Outside, the wind was getting stronger. Inside, something between us was finally breaking completely. I thought about the morning. About packing our things and driving home and pretending this weekend had helped. About going back to his house and his world and his careful, conditional love. I thought about Monday morning. About sitting at my desk and answering phones and filing papers while my heart broke a little more each day. I thought about the apartment listings on my laptop, the moving company quotes in my email, the bank account he didn't know about. For the first time since this all started, the future felt real instead of theoretical. Sunday morning came too soon. We packed in silence and drove home without saying much. The closer we got to the city, the more tense Evan became. Like he knew something had shifted over the weekend. Like he could feel me pulling away. That was nice, he said as we pulled into the driveway. It was. We should do it more often. Maybe. Inside the house, everything looked exactly the same. But I felt like a stranger walking through rooms that belonged to someone else. The walls felt too white. The ceilings felt too high. Everything felt too much like a museum and not enough like a home. I went upstairs to unpack while Evan made calls about work, hung up my clothes and put my toiletries back in their proper places. All of it automatic, like muscle memory. But when I opened my laptop to check email, I found myself looking at apartment listings instead. 3-bedroom places I could afford on my own. 2-bedroom places that would give me room for an office. 1-bedroom places that were small but mine. I bookmarked 5 of them. Then I opened a new browser window and searched for moving companies. Read reviews, made notes. Started a timeline in my head. 2 weeks. I could be ready in 2 weeks. The thought should have scared me. Instead, it felt like relief. Monday morning, Evan left for work early. He kissed my forehead before he went, a gesture that used to feel loving, but now felt patronizing. I sat at the kitchen counter drinking coffee and watching the sun come up over the city. My phone buzzed with a text from Marla. "How was the weekend?" I typed back. "I'll call you later." But I knew what I was going to tell her. I knew what I'd finally admitted to myself in that hotel room with the fireplace and the perfect view. I was done trying to fix something that had never been right in the first place. At work, I called 3 apartment complexes during my lunch break, scheduled visits for the weekend, asked about lease terms and security deposits and all the practical things that came with starting over. The woman at the 3rd complex was particularly helpful. "When are you looking to move in?" she asked. 2 weeks from now." "That's quick. Everything okay?" I paused. "Everything's fine. I just need a change." "I understand. Sometimes we all need a fresh start." A fresh start. The words stuck with me for the rest of the day. That evening, Evan came home with takeout from an expensive restaurant downtown. Another peace offering. Another attempt to buy his way back into my good graces. "I thought we could eat in the dining room tonight," he said. "Use the good china." We never used the dining room except for his parents. Never used the good china except for special occasions. It felt like he was trying to make this meal into something it wasn't. But I agreed, because I was tired of fighting. Tired of explaining why everything felt wrong. Tired of being the problem in a marriage where I'd never been the real priority. We sat at opposite ends of the long table, eating expensive food off expensive plates in a room that echoed with every sound. The chandelier cast light that was too bright. The flowers in the centerpiece were perfect, but had no smell. "I've been thinking," Evan said. "About what?" "About what you said. About night classes. About wanting to build something of your own." I looked up from my food. "And? Maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe you should pursue something you're passionate about." "Like what?" "I don't know. What are you passionate about?" The question hung in the air between us. What was I passionate about? I'd been living his life for so long, I'd forgotten what mine looked like. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Well, think about it. We can afford for you to take some time to figure it out. Maybe take a break from work and explore your options." There it was again. His money solving my problems. His resources fixing what was broken in me. "What if I don't want to take a break from work?" I asked. "Then don't. But the option is there. And what if I want to move out while I figure it out?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. Evan's fork froze halfway to his mouth. "Move out?" "Just temporarily. Get my own place. Have some space to think." "Space to think about what?" "About us. About what I want. About who I am when I'm not trying to be the perfect wife for someone else." Evan set down his fork. "You don't need to move out to figure that out." "Don't I?" "No. You can figure it out here, in our home, with my support. Our home, my support. Everything still filtered through him. What if I want to figure it out alone? Why would you want that?" I looked around the dining room, at the expensive furniture and the perfect decorations and the life that looked so good from the outside, at the man sitting at the other end of the table, confused and hurt that his charity project was talking about leaving. "Because I've never been alone," I said. "I went from my parents' house to college to living with you. I've never had my own space, my own life, my own choices that didn't have to be approved by someone else." "You don't need my approval for anything." "Don't I? You approved my clothes. You approved my hair. You approved my friends and my hobbies and my dreams. Everything I've done for the past 3 years has been shaped by what you think is appropriate or smart or right." I was trying to help. "I know, but I don't want help anymore. I want independence." Evan was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "How long would this separation be?" "I don't know. A few weeks? A few months?" "I don't know, Evan. Maybe forever." The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples of shock and hurt spread across his face. "You want a divorce?" "I want to remember who I am without you. And if you remember and you don't like who that person is, then at least I'll know. And if you remember and that person doesn't want to be married to me," I met his eyes across the table, "then at least we'll both know." He pushed his chair back and stood up, walked to the window and stared out at the city lights. His reflection in the glass looked small and lost. "I can't believe you're willing to throw away 3 years of marriage for some experiment in independence. I can't believe you think 3 years of marriage should be enough to keep me somewhere I don't belong." He turned around. "You do belong here. With me. We belong together. Do we? Or do you just need me to belong here because it makes you feel good about yourself? That's not fair." Then answer the question. If I left tomorrow and never came back, what would you miss about me? Not about having a wife. About me, specifically. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Opened it again. I'd miss everything. That's not an answer. I'd miss your laugh. The way you make coffee too strong. The way you sing in the shower when you think I can't hear you. I waited for more. For something deeper. For something that showed he knew who I actually was underneath all the things he'd tried to make me become. But that was it. Surface things. Pretty things. Things that any woman could provide if she tried hard enough. I'm going upstairs, I said. Nia, please, don't do this. Don't throw us away. I stopped at the doorway and looked back at him. I'm not throwing us away, Evan. I'm just finally admitting there never was an us. There was you, and there was the woman you needed me to be for you. That's not true. Then tell me something about me that you've never told anyone else. Something real. Something that has nothing to do with how I make you feel, or how I fit into your life. He stared at me for a long moment. I could see him thinking, searching for something that would prove me wrong. The silence stretched on. I can't think of anything right now, he said finally. But that doesn't mean... It means exactly what I think it means. I went upstairs and closed the bedroom door behind me, sat on the bed, and opened my laptop. The apartment listings were still there, waiting for me to make them real. I picked up my phone and called the woman from the third complex. Hi, this is Nia Carter. I called earlier about the one-bedroom apartment. Oh yes, hello. Did you have more questions? Actually, I was wondering if I could see it tonight. I know it's late, but I'm actually still here finishing up some paperwork. If you want to come by in the next hour, I can show you around. I'll be right there. I hung up and grabbed my purse and car keys. Downstairs, Evan was still in the dining room, staring at our barely touched dinner. I'm going out, I said. Where? To look at an apartment. His face went white. Tonight? Tonight. Nia, please, can we just... I'll be back later. I left him sitting at that long table in that perfect dining room, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was going home instead of leaving it. The apartment was perfect in its simplicity. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a small kitchen with a window that looked out at a tree. The walls were white, but not the sterile white of Evan's house. This was warm white, lived-in white. The previous tenant just moved out yesterday, the leasing agent explained as we walked through. She lived here for 5 years, loved the place. Why did she leave? Got married, moving in with her fiancé. I tried to picture myself here. Waking up in the small bedroom with sunlight streaming through windows I could reach without a ladder. Making coffee in the tiny kitchen. Reading on the couch that would fit perfectly against the far wall. It felt like home before I'd even signed the lease. I'll take it, I said. Don't you want to think about it? Talk it over with your husband? No, I'll take it, she smiled. I like a woman who knows what she wants. I signed the papers and wrote a check for the deposit. My hand was steady the whole time. No shaking, no second-guessing. Just clean, clear decision-making. You can move in any time after Friday, she said, handing me the keys. Welcome home. Welcome home. The words followed me all the way back to Evan's house. He was waiting in the living room when I walked in, sitting in his leather chair with a glass of scotch, still wearing his work clothes. He looked up when I entered, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. How did it go? He asked. I signed a lease. The glass slipped in his hand. A little scotch splashed onto his pants, but he didn't seem to notice. Just like that. Just like that. When are you moving? This weekend. He set the glass down carefully and stood up. Nia, please, let's talk about this. Really talk. Not about apartments or independence or any of that. Let's talk about us. Okay, let's talk about us. I know I hurt you. I know I said something unforgivable, but we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can... Evan. I held up my hand. Do you know what I realized tonight? He shook his head. I realized I've never made a major decision on my own since we've been together. The apartment, the job, even what I wore to dinner parties. Everything was filtered through what you thought was best for me. I was trying to support you. No, you were trying to manage me. And I let you, because I thought that's what love looked like. It is what love looks like. Taking care of each other, wanting the best for each other. But you never asked me what I thought was best for me. Evan ran his hands through his hair. The gesture that used to be endearing now just looked desperate. So what are you saying? That everything we built together means nothing? I'm saying we didn't build anything together. You built a life, and I tried to fit into it. That's not... When we got married, did you change anything about your life? Anything at all? He was quiet for a moment. I don't understand the question. Did you change your house? Your friends? Your hobbies? Your career? Did you adjust anything about who you were to accommodate me? No. But I changed everything. My hair, my clothes, my friends, my dreams. I even changed the way I talked so your mother wouldn't say I was too urban. Nobody asked you to do that. You didn't have to ask. It was made clear what was expected. By who? By everyone. Your mother with her comments about appropriate behavior. Your father with his awkward questions about my background. Your friends with their surprised looks when I knew something about art or wine or politics. Those people don't matter. But you never defended me to them. You never told your mother her comments were inappropriate. You never told your friends their assumptions were wrong. You just let me navigate it alone and hoped I'd figure out how to fit in. Evan sat back down heavily. I thought you were happy. I thought I was supposed to be happy. There's a difference? I looked at him sitting there in his expensive suit in his expensive chair, genuinely confused by the concept that I might have my own feelings about my own life. Yes, Evan, there's a difference. My phone buzzed with a text message. I checked it out of habit and saw Marla's name. How did the apartment hunting go? I smiled. Someone who cared about what I wanted. Someone who asked questions because they wanted to know the answers, not because they were trying to fix something. Who's that? Evan asked. Marla, she's checking on me. You told her about the apartment? I told her about everything. His face darkened. What do you mean, everything? I mean, I told my best friend that my husband married me out of pity, and I'm leaving him. You had no right to discuss our private business with... Stop. The word came out sharper than I'd intended, but I didn't soften it. Don't you dare tell me what I have the right to discuss. Don't you dare try to control who I talk to about my own life. That's not what I was doing. Yes, it was. You were upset that I shared something that makes you look bad. You're more worried about your image than you are about my feelings. That's not true. Then why was your first reaction concern about what Marla thinks of you, instead of concern about how much I've been hurting? He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it, because we both knew I was right. I'm going to pack some things, I said. Tonight? Just enough for a few days. I'll get the rest this weekend. I started toward the stairs, then stopped. Evan? Yeah? For what it's worth, I did love you. I loved you more than I've ever loved anyone. Past tense? I considered the question. I love who you were when we met. But that person was probably just being polite to a stranger in a coffee shop. The real you is the person who thinks loving someone is the same as doing them a favor. I went upstairs and packed a small suitcase. Clothes for a few days, toiletries, my laptop, the folder of documents I'd been collecting. It felt surreal, packing to leave a life I'd spent 3 years building, but it also felt right. When I came back downstairs, Evan was standing in the foyer like he wanted to block my path to the door. "Where are you going tonight?" "Marla's." "And then what? You just move into that apartment and pretend we never happened?" I set my suitcase down and looked at him. Really looked. At the man I'd promised to love forever. At the face I'd kissed good morning 1,000 times. At the person who thought loving me was charity work. I'm not pretending we never happened. I'm just not pretending it was something it wasn't. And what was it? It was a beautiful mistake. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. Evan's face crumpled, and for a moment I felt sorry for him. Sorry for both of us. "I don't want you to go," he said quietly. "I know. Then don't." "Staying would be easier," I admitted. "But easy isn't always better." I picked up my suitcase and walked toward the door. Evan followed me. "Nia, please, just give me a chance to prove I can change." I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. "You've had 3 years to change. You've had weeks since you said what you said to change. But you're still standing there asking me to give you something instead of asking what you can give me." "What can I give you?" "Nothing. That's the point. I don't want you to give me anything. I want you to see me as someone who doesn't need saving." "I do see you that way." "No, you don't. Even now, you think if you just find the right words or make the right gesture, you can fix this. You think this is a problem to be solved instead of a truth to be accepted." "What truth?" "That we were never equals in this marriage. That you loved me like a pet you were training, not like a partner you respected." Evan's face went white. That's a horrible thing to say." "It's a horrible thing to be true." I opened the door and stepped into the cool night air. Behind me, I heard Evan say my name one more time. But I didn't turn around. Some conversations don't need endings. They just need to stop. I drove to Marla's apartment with the radio off, listening to the sound of my own breathing. At red lights, I looked at other people in other cars and wondered what their stories were, if they were driving toward something or away from it. Marla was waiting with wine and tissues and righteous anger. "I can't believe it took you this long," she said, hugging me tight. "I can't believe I did it at all." "How do you feel?" I thought about it. Scared, sad, free. Free is good. Free is terrifying. Same thing sometimes. We sat on her couch and talked until almost midnight. About the apartment and the future and what I wanted my life to look like 6 months from now. It felt good to talk about possibilities instead of problems. "Can I ask you something?" Marla said as I got ready for bed. "Anything." "Do you think you'll miss him?" "I already miss him. I've been missing him for months." "What do you mean?" "I miss the version of him I fell in love with. The one who asked me questions because he wanted to know the answers. The one who laughed at my jokes instead of correcting my grammar. The one who saw me as a person instead of a project. Maybe that version never existed. Maybe not. Or maybe it only existed as long as I was a stranger. The next few days passed in a blur of logistics. I took time off work to handle the move. Called utility companies and changed my address and did all the small, practical things that come with starting over. Evan texted me twice, once to ask if I was okay, once to ask if I was coming back for my things. I answered both messages with single words, yes and Saturday. He didn't text again. Friday evening, I stood in my new apartment with boxes scattered around and takeout containers on the counter. The place was small and empty, and nothing like the mansion I'd left behind. It was perfect. Marla came over with a bottle of champagne and helped me unpack the essentials. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. To remembering who I am, I replied. Saturday morning came too soon. I drove to Evan's house. I couldn't call it our house anymore, with a moving truck following behind me. The driver was a middle-aged woman named Rosa, who'd done this job for 15 years. Divorce? She asked as we pulled into the driveway. Separation, maybe divorce. They're never easy, but sometimes they're necessary. Yeah, sometimes they are. Evan's car was in the driveway. I'd hoped he wouldn't be home. Hoped I could pack my things and leave without another conversation. But as I walked to the front door, I realized there were things that needed to be said. He answered before I could knock. Hi, he said. Hi. We stood there for a moment, looking at each other like strangers. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, casual clothes I'd rarely seen him in. He looked younger, more vulnerable. The movers are here, I said. I know, I'll stay out of your way. Thank you. But he didn't stay out of my way. He followed me through the house as I pointed out what belonged to me. Watched as Rosa and her crew carried out boxes and furniture and pieces of a life I was leaving behind. You can take more, he said as I walked past the living room. The paintings you liked, the good dishes, whatever you want. I only want what's mine. Half of everything here is yours, legally. I stopped and looked at him. I don't want half of everything. I just want to start over with things that belong to me. The money in our joint account. Keep it. Nia, be practical. You have a right to... I don't want your money, Evan. I never did. He stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Like the concept of not wanting his financial support was incomprehensible. Then what do you want? I want to miss you for the right reasons. What does that mean? I thought about how to explain it. Right now, I miss you because you're familiar, because change is hard, because 3 years is a long time to spend with someone. And I want to miss you because you made me laugh, because you challenged me to grow, because you loved me in a way that made me love myself more. I did love you that way. No, you didn't. You loved me in a way that made you feel good about yourself. The movers were almost finished. Soon there would be nothing left of me in this house, nothing to show I'd ever lived here except memories and empty spaces. I found something of yours, Evan said, as Rosa carried out the last box. Something I want to give you. He disappeared upstairs and came back with a small wooden box I'd never seen before. What is it? Look inside. I opened the box and found photos. Pictures of us from when we first started dating, at the coffee shop where we met, on our first real date, at the park where we used to walk on Sunday mornings. In every picture, I was smiling. Really smiling. Not the careful, appropriate smile I'd learned to wear at his family's dinners. This was joy, pure and unguarded. You were so happy then, he said quietly. I was. When did you stop being happy? I looked at the photos for a long moment. When I stopped being me. And when was that? I don't know exactly. Somewhere between the first time your mother criticized my hair and the last time you corrected something I said in public. Evan was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I never meant to change you. I know. I thought I was helping. I know that too. But I was wrong. Yeah, you were wrong. Rosa appeared in the doorway. We're all loaded up, honey. Ready when you are. I closed the box of photos and handed it back to Evan. You keep these. I thought you might want them. I want to remember being happy. But I don't want to remember being happy with someone who thought I needed fixing. I walked toward the door, then turned back one more time. Evan? Yeah? Find someone who doesn't need saving, and when you do, love her exactly as she is. What if I already found someone like that and I was too stupid to see it? Then you'll know better next time. I left him standing in the doorway of his perfect house, holding a box of pictures of a girl who used to be happy. The girl I was going to remember how to be again. 3 weeks later, I was settling into my new life. The apartment felt like home in a way the mansion never had. I'd hung pictures on the walls, pictures I'd chosen. I'd bought furniture that fit the space instead of making the space fit the furniture. I'd painted the bedroom a soft blue that made me happy every time I walked into it. Work felt different too. I'd started speaking up in meetings, offering opinions, taking on projects that challenged me instead of just completing tasks I was given. Janet noticed the change. "You seem lighter," she said one afternoon. "Happier." "I am happier." "Good. Happiness looks good on you." I'd also started those night classes, business marketing, 3 evenings a week. The other students were a mix of ages and backgrounds, all of us trying to learn something new, build something better. It felt good to be a student again, to raise my hand and ask questions, and not worry about whether my voice was too loud or my ideas were too bold. One evening after class, I stopped at a coffee shop near campus. It was small and crowded, with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. Nothing like the sterile perfection of Evan's world. I was waiting for my order when I heard someone call my name. "Naya? Naya Carter?" I turned around and saw a man about my age with kind eyes and a warm smile. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. "I'm sorry," I said. "Do we know each other?" "College, Northwestern. We had Professor Martinez's economics class together." "David!" It came back to me in a rush. "David Chen. Oh my God, how are you?" "Good, really good. I was just thinking about that class the other day. You always ask the best questions." I laughed. "I asked too many questions. No such thing. You made the rest of us think harder." We talked for a few minutes about college and careers and life. He was a financial advisor now, recently divorced, taking night classes to learn web design because he'd always been curious about it. "What about you?" he asked. "What brings you to campus on a Tuesday night?" "Marketing classes. I'm trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up." "At 29? You've got time." "That's what I'm learning." He smiled. "It's good to see you, Nia. You look, I don't know, content, like you figured something important out. I'm working on it." We all are. My order was ready. As I got up to leave, David said, "Hey, if you're ever interested in grabbing coffee and talking about, I don't know, life and late-blooming career changes and whatever else, I'd love the company." I looked at him. Really looked. At his open face and his genuine smile and the way he asked without expecting anything. "I'd like that," I said. "Great. Can I get your number?" I gave it to him, and he gave me his. No games, no complications. Just two people who might enjoy each other's company. Walking back to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. Not the heavy weight of someone else's expectations, but the light, bright feeling of not knowing what might happen next. My phone buzzed as I was driving home. A text from an unknown number, but I knew who it was. "It was really good to see you tonight. Looking forward to that coffee. David." I smiled and put my phone away without responding. I'd text him back when I got home. When I had time to think about what I wanted to say instead of reacting out of politeness or obligation. I was learning that I had time. Time to think. Time to choose. Time to be deliberate about what I let into my life and what I kept out. 2 months after I'd moved out, Evan called me. "Hi," he said when I answered. "Hi. How are you?" "I'm good. How are you?" He paused. "I'm learning some things about myself." "Like what?" "Like how much I need to be needed. How much I've built my identity around being the one who helps people." It was an honest admission. More honest than he'd ever been with me when we were married. "That's good, Evan. Self-awareness is good." "I've been going to therapy." "That's good too." She asked me about you, about us, about what I thought went wrong. And what did you tell her? He was quiet for a long moment. I told her I thought I was saving you, but really I think you were saving me. Saving you from what? From having to look at myself too closely, from having to be a real partner instead of just a provider. I pulled into my apartment complex and sat in my car, listening to him talk. This was the most real conversation we'd ever had. I'm sorry, he said, for all of it. For the pity comment and for not seeing you clearly and for making you feel like you had to earn my love. Thank you. Do you think... He hesitated. Do you think we could ever try again? If I did the work? If I really changed? I looked up at my apartment building, at the home I'd built for myself, at the life I was creating one careful choice at a time. I don't know, I said honestly. I'm not the same person I was when I left. I know, and that's probably a good thing. Yeah, it is. Will you think about it? I'll think about it. We hung up, and I sat in my car for a few more minutes, thinking about the past and the future and the present moment I was living in. I thought about David and our coffee date next week, about my marketing class and the project I was working on, about the woman I was becoming. Someone who asked for what she wanted instead of accepting what she was given. Maybe Evan could change. Maybe he was changing, but I was changing too, growing into someone who knew her own worth, who didn't need saving or fixing or improving. Someone who was enough, exactly as she was. I got out of my car and walked to my apartment, the one with the white walls and the blue bedroom and the kitchen window that looked out at a tree, the one where I could be loud or quiet, messy or clean, ambitious or content, without asking anyone's permission. As I unlocked my door, I thought about mornings, about waking up in my own space, making my own choices, building my own dreams. Some mornings, I thought about Evan, wondered if he was happy, hoped he was learning to love himself the way he'd needed me to love him. But most mornings, I thought about me, about who I was becoming, about what I wanted to build. And some mornings, the best mornings, I didn't think about him at all. Those were the mornings I knew I'd made the right choice. The mornings I felt free. The end.